Okay, welcome back to another very special episode of Dr. J Radio Live. Of course, I'm your host, Dr. J, broadcasting from the very hot city of Angels, or sometimes, as I like to say, the city of the Woking Dead. With me is an amazing person. He is the host of Jesse Lee Peterson, which is on 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific. Also, he is a pastor at Bond, which is Sundays. And if you're not here in Los Angeles, you could also check that out online on YouTube, as well as the host of Fallen State. Pastor or Reverend Peterson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on, Dr. J. You can call me Jesse, just Jesse. And
Thank,
my show is on from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. You said p.m., but it's 9 a.m.
thank you.
Pacific
Sorry.
time.
Yeah,
No
I'm
problem.
brain
No.
fart.
Yeah,
Uh,
but thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's amazing. As you would
Amazing.
say.
And
Yeah.
by the way, happy White History Month. You know, July is White History Month, right?
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to get into that. So, what was the background, if you will? What made you want to form White History Month?
Well, number one, I was born in America, down in Sweet Home, Alabama. And I grew up at a time when blacks and whites, for the most part, were getting along. They didn't hate one another. Of course, you felt pockets of that, I guess, out there somewhere in the world, but they didn't hate one another. And we were taught to love one another and to love our country.
Hmm.
And so growing up, we used to celebrate the 4th of July. Family members and friends who were away and come home, they would come home and we all go and have this big celebration of the 4th of July, showing appreciation to America. And when I was in school, it was an all black school, but they did not taught us to hate America. They gave us the history to appreciate America. And then now I look around, all of a sudden that starts to change. You have people who are hating America, erasing the history of America, destroying the founders of this great country, and tearing down monuments and statues and flags and everything that is white history, American history, right?
That's
And
right.
so and then they're replacing it with stuff like George Floyd, a statue of a drug addict, uh, unemployed drug addict with a criminal record, or they replace it with something else dumb. And then they celebrate Black history, Mexican history, Japanese history, Chinese um, woman history, everything but American history. And so I realized one day after all these years, I realized if we don't do something, generations to come will not know what America was like. They won't know because they're coming into a world where there's so much anger and hatred and separation and division, and they're going to come into the greatest country thinking that it's the worst country. And so I thought, you know what? Let me start July as White History Month to make an attempt to remind the young folks and older people what America is all about. And so I figured that every other month was taken up, and July just feels white. Vacation time, summertime, reflection time, relaxing time. So 5 years ago, we started July as White History Month. And so we're now celebrating 5 years of July as White History Month.
My legal background is saying by creating any month like that, it's a slippery slope because you give one group of it, then you got to give them all. But it wasn't you that's created the first one. It was, what is it? Black History Month was the first, and then Gay Pride and all that. Well, I'm Greek, which is white. There's no Greek History Month or anything like that.
Right.
I would rather, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad you did. I would rather eliminate every history month, every single one, and just
Yeah.
keep the 4th of July. That way,
Yeah.
there's no slippery slope. And that way, everyone celebrates American history. If you want to celebrate another culture's history, do it on your own time. We don't need to close banks, post offices, streets, and everything like that for it. There's nothing here in Greek for my family. But, we celebrate America because we're American citizens. I was born in this country.
And you're right. That is the right way, is not to have set aside for any history like that. But the reality is they're doing it, and they are erasing white history. They are erasing the appreciation that we should have for the country. And so we got to do something. I wish it wasn't like that. I liked it better when we were not doing all these celebration things, right? And just appreciate America. They even have something now, and they made it into like a national holiday or something called Juneteenth.
Again, why
Juneteenth has no meaning. It has no meaning at all, except for a few black people in Texas didn't know that slavery had in it. And
I also heard that it's not even June 19th. Yeah, the people in Texas didn't know, but some former slaves didn't even know until I think December of that year.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised, but it's about those people didn't know slavery had in it. And so they called them up one day and said, hey, y'all, slavery in it. They're like, yeah, when? And a few people found out that it ended. Now they call it that a national holiday. That's insanity, man. That's a perfect example of insanity. So those are the reasons we gotta remind people to come how great this country really is. And also, long story short, they want to erase Christianity, because if they can erase the white man, they can erase Christianity. And so they're working hard at doing that. And unfortunately, they're erasing it by causing people to be angry. And then in their state of anger, the people fall for anything. So they're falling for this idea that Christianity is bad, Christianity is the white man's religion, and all this crap. So it's an evil thing, but that's what's happening.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually something I wrote down. Why is God essentially being killed in America? Matt Walsh wrote an amazing book a few years ago that essentially people who don't have faith essentially is what's causing the collapse and all the hatred. And now that we're talking about lies and hatred, let's bring up race for a second. You mentioned slavery, right?
Yes.
And a few months ago, I went down a rabbit hole. It was actually not long after I've seen a couple other things that I had not seen of you, over the years. And I was curious, because the narrative is right now that, the evil white man kidnapped slaves and all that, which I've always known to be untrue, because didn't settlers go buy slaves from Africa, from the African kings, and traded for them? And it wasn't even necessarily, American settlers from every country. I think it was even just the Dutch. So regardless, slavery ends. And I found this really amazing channel called Life in the 1800s. And that channel will have like people who worked on the Pony Express. And in the end of their lives in the 1930s, when cameras, are prevalent, they're recording them. I can't believe on that channel and how many other channels like that, I found former slaves who were slaves up until 1865. And then in the 1930s filmed these, that said that my master was good to me. All she said was, don't ever lie and steal. And if I need something, if I really need it, ask and I can give it. And she also went on to say that as the 13th Amendment, I think it was the 13th or 14th, I should know this, because the point is, after the amendment to end slavery came into effect, her and many others were offered to stay as employees. I was shocked at how many actually stayed to be employees. And another thing I know that most people do not know, because they want to bury this under history, there were a ton of black slave owners. And there were also a ton of black slaves that fought on the South.
The reality is that it was the Arabs who went to Africa and they bought the blacks from other black people. Yes. And then and they bought them, and then they went around the world and sold them around the world. It wasn't the white man that did it. It was the Arabs who did it. As a matter of fact, Arabs are still enslaving blacks over there, and nothing is being said about it. And so it was the Arab, and the people are lying about the history because in order to control the people, you have to lie to them.
Mhm.
You have to lie. And once you believe a lie, it's impossible to convince someone that it's a lie. And so
Yes.
they've used this lie that it was the white man who went to Africa and bought the blacks and sold them. And so the reason they're doing it in this country and in all the Western countries
Mhm.
is because the white man has been brilliant in developing in finance and education and making a way, making
Yeah.
something out of nothing. And these people want to take over because they want that power, perceived power, and they want the wealth. And so they're using the blacks and they're using false history in order to gain control over the blacks. They have in this country today, these people are fighting over foolish things.
Yeah.
And while they're fighting one another over so-called racism and everything, the rights are being taken away from them. The right to speak, the right to vote. I mean, the right to bear arms, the right to this and that. It's been taken away. And even it wasn't, but let's say white people took a ride over to Africa from America and bought some black people.
Mhm.
That was 150 years ago or
Yeah.
longer. Why not let that go and learn to live for now? Because all we have is right now, everything else is an illusion. But they're living in the imagination and they're being deceived. And it's mind blowing to see it.
I'm really glad you just brought that up. I don't know if you ever watch Doc Rich or Black Conservative Perspective, but Doc Rich was showing a video of Larry Elder. I think it was yesterday. And Larry Elder was, another one of those Young America Foundations, and he's on stage. And, of course, somebody woke wants to, challenge him and, demands reparations and all that. And, how slavery in the past is affecting him today, even though he's like 20. And, I love it how Larry jumps in and says, "Sir, you're not 400 years old."
Right.
And he's like, "Yeah, but, for the other, former slaves," he's like, "There's no such thing as a former slave. They're all dead." And he goes, "By the way, the slave masters you're talking about are also all dead. Until you find me one that's alive, we'll have a different conversation."
And if you notice, they complain about the white slaves, I mean, the white owners of the slaves, but they don't even mention black people who own slaves in America. How come it's okay for the blacks to own the slaves than it is for the whites to own the slave? Just crazy. I saw this movie a while back called Hotel Rwanda, something like that.
Yes.
It is about how over there the blacks were, they killed thousands.
I think it was like 800,000. I don't know if it was one day or so, but you're right. It was two tribes, the Hutus and the Tutsis.
Yes, and they killed thousands of other black people, slaughtered them. You couldn't even drive down the road unless you was running over bodies. You don't hear anything about that. Why is that okay? It's because the white man has the money and the power, and they want that. It's about self. It's not about the blacks. It's not about the whites. It's not about America. They want perceived power and wealth for themselves.
To jump around a little bit, this question came up a couple minutes ago, and I should have asked it then, but we were on a roll here, as we always are. This is Pyramid 7, and leading up to today, I was chatting with him, and he's also someone who's been watching you for a long time and asks a very great question. By the way, Pyramid, thank you for the super chat. He says, "What is Jesse's take on wokeness?"
It's pure evil. It's evil. Our battle is a battle between good and evil. Mm-hmm. And the people who are promoting this idea of wokeness, they're really asleep and they can't see. And it's all intellectual and it's all evil. There's nothing good in it at all. And that's why most people need to reject it, not be afraid of it, reject it. Because if we continue down this so-called road of wokeness, America is over. You can say goodbye to America. It will become a communist socialist society. So wokeness is evil. That's why they try to shut up anyone who disagree with them at all. They want to shut them down because they don't want to hear the truth. They don't want the truth to get out there. And our battle is a spiritual battle between right and wrong, good and evil. And it starts with us. If we can overcome the evil within ourselves, we can overcome the evil outside of us, inside of others.
if you don't mind me asking, how old are you? I think you were born in 48. Am I right or wrong?
I'm older than dirt.
The
God
point
created
is, you
God
got
created me, and then He created dirt.
okay.
And so
Regardless, you
I'm
got a few
73.
decades. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
73 years old.
you're in the a few years younger than my parents.
Yeah.
You've got years on me. I'm 42, going on 43. Decades, right? The point being is, you've seen a lot more than I'll ever see. I remember, when I was in college, in late 90s, early 2000s, I was in the Young Republicans Club. No problem. I'm sure it's completely different now.
Yeah.
At the same time, you know, everybody remembered the Cold War and how communism was bad. So, have you ever seen such a drastic push for communism, socialism, the idea that you could be whatever you want just because you think it? Like, oh, I'm going to be a woman today. Or better yet, I'm going to identify as a trans extraterrestrial alien so I don't have to wear a mask because I don't breathe oxygen. I mean, this is so
Yeah.
loony. You have women who married a cat, another woman who married an airplane. Like, where does this end? Have you ever seen any of this before?
I heard of one woman who married herself.
Yes, I heard that too. So she could drive in the carpool lane and other bogus things.
Right. But no, I'm not. As a matter of fact, in all honesty, when I was growing up, I didn't know a lot about communism and socialism and things like that. And so I heard about it, but I didn't know a lot about it. And I thought it was just in other countries. I did not imagine it ever, 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 ever coming to America, because I thought that, first of all, when I was young, I thought America was too big for anyone to turn it into a socialist, communist society. And then I thought that people would never give up their freedom, because I love freedom, right? So I never imagined anyone would give up their freedom. And then I never thought that if you were born in America, you live here, why would you want to change something that's so amazing into something that's so awful like communism, socialism? So in all honesty, Dr. J, I never, ever, ever in my whole life imagined that's what's happening in my country would be happening today. It just wasn't a part of my thinking.
You know what? I thank you for saying that, because, other people have said that this cycle has gone on before in the past. I know you watch some aspects of Fox. There's a lot that I don't trust on there, but, Mr. Carlson is one of the few that I do like. One America Network is One American News is the one I prefer. But Pete Hegseth wrote an amazing book going back to show some of this wackiness literally in the 19th century. If you saw Ben Shapiro's video that he did a couple of days ago, he talked how these transgender push really started in 1880 and then really blew up in 1950 with Kinsey and then John Money and all these really, really whack people. And even saw an interesting thing that the word gender was always used for words. Always. And it wasn't until the 50s where they decided to separate sex and gender and say, no. Humans have too. So do you think this will end? I mean, I know you know this because this was recently on the news and you cover a lot. TikTok, right? We all know is Chinese owned.
Yes.
What they show to their citizens is not this woke crap. It's not this, you could be whatever you want. It's children singing, doing memes. What we see seems like total mind control. Do you think all this wokeism, transgenderism, you could be whatever you want, all of that is a way to destroy America from within by maybe somebody like China?
100%. I saw that too, where in our country on TikTok, they show people twerking and all ego, talking about how wonderful they are and what they're dressing in, how they eat, and just dumbing down America. Where in China, they're teaching on TikTok over there, they're teaching the people to read and write and draw and appreciate the country. And it's just a whole different thing. And that is part of the breakdown of America, is to brainwash them, because you can't control a person that is independent, is an independent thinker, not a group thinker, but an independent thinker. Because when I was growing up, we were independent thinkers. We were taught as kids, don't ever let someone else think for you. You
Yes.
could hear, but let it pass. Don't hold on to it. You think for yourself. Don't join group. You be an individual. And so we were taught to be independent thinkers. And all this wokeness crap that they're doing on TikTok and social media is about putting the people asleep,
Hmm.
dumbing them down, and causing them to become group thinkers rather than individuals. And China, I mean, the stuff I hear about what they're doing, if we don't, these people don't wake up soon, we will be taken over by China. They will
Yeah,
control the
yeah.
world.
And I've been really shouting that for, as best as I could to anybody who listened. I
Yeah.
think for about 8 years, long before Mr. Trump came into or even started saying things in 2015. And now it seems crazier than ever. I'm sure you just heard Pelosi announced that she's going to go to Taiwan, and China said that's going to provoke us into a war because you're violating the one China policy. This would have never happened under President Trump. And Putin would have never gone to Ukraine because we are exerting the most weak, the weakest thing we've ever shown about America is what we're showing. And then when you have Kirby go to meet with the Chinese, and they say, oh, you have when we try to mention human rights, and then they turn around and say, well, yeah, you guys have white supremacy in America. Well, where do you think they got stupid stuff like that?
That's
Because
right.
of the Dem channels and the
Yeah.
idiot Dems who keep saying this is the worst thing in America, which I've seen you argue so many times. It really doesn't exist. And even Larry Elder will say it is not people's, it's not even on the top 100 problems in America these days.
Not only is it not on the top 100 list, it doesn't exist. It's an illusion.
Yes.
When I was growing up on that plantation down in Alabama, there was no word that I'm aware of called racism. It didn't even exist.
Hmm.
We knew, the blacks and the whites knew it was a spiritual battle.
Yeah.
That there were angry black people and there were angry white people. There were angry, non-angry white people and non-angry black people. And those people who were not angry came along together. They got along. They
Yep.
treated each other with respect. Those who were angry, they were out of control in their own personal lives and the way they acted out in public. They were out of control. Racism is a made up word. It's made up in order to deceive, to put fear in you, and to control you. And if you notice that whenever these people want more perceived power, they want to destroy America even more so, they
Hmm.
use the word racism. And when they use that word racism, everybody, they go in hiding. They stop speaking up. They stop fighting back. They just give up. White people run and hide, and black people follow whatever these people say do. There is no such thing as racism, sexism, homophobism, Allah Akbarism, Debbie Dadism, white supremacism, or anti-Semitism. There's no isms. It's either right or wrong, good or evil. It's a spiritual thing. It's not physical at all. But if you're one of those woke people, you would think that it's physical, and it's not. Our battle is totally spiritual. And so I've been, and one other quick thing, I've been saying for years now to white people, I've been writing about it. I used to at one time write for WorldNet Daily and other organizations. And I would tell the white people, y'all under attack.
Hmm.
There's no such, racism is not real. You better start speaking up now. 32 years ago, speak up now. Don't give in to this crap. And the whites were afraid and they gave in, and look what we have now. They're under attack in their own country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not even going north. Everybody accused them of being racist whenever they want a piece of the pie.
And they've destroyed the word completely. It is so meaningless. As I told you, it was 2018 when I had Roger Stone on, and they didn't even say anything to me, but some jackass in the comments put, anybody who listens to this guy, meaning Roger, is a racist. Now, I let it stay up for a handful of days, and then I just deleted it because it was more offensive to everybody who was in my chat room that day and everybody who had posted positive things about it. But they destroyed that word. And I'm glad you just mentioned what you said. It's good or evil, because that was one of the other things I wanted you to come on and say. Because if I said it, I would be called every other bad word under the book. But I'm with you. It is about good and evil people. It's not necessarily, I don't think that anyone grows up and says, I don't like this set of people because of this something they were born with. I think they're just evil minded people and maybe listening to some other evil minded people, such as
They're
the
being
case of the
brainwashed.
KKK.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Brainwashed.
How would
Uh,
you feel if they attack you for saying that there is no racism? How would you deal with that?
you know, it's ironic because when I was at your service, and this is for everybody out there, this is one thing I really love about Jesse's church service. It's very interactive. He will ask questions of the audience. That day, what you asked all of us, what do you fear most? And I think one of the things I said wasn't. I stopped to think about it after I left. It's what you said right now. I fear not necessarily getting canceled, but they have affected me because this will. I love politics. I love paying attention to real world issues. I love other things I do on this channel. Paranormal, all the other aspects. But I would like to do more of the real world issues. That fear, that like as Candace Owens says, always having that figurative gun to your head that you're going to be called racist, you're going to be called transphobic, you're going to be called misogynistic. All these BS made up words that are meaningless to me because everybody I've ever known, interacted with all my entire life, have never said anything of those about me, nor about themselves, because that's not just the type of people we are. So I don't fear being offended. I fear what's happening. I'm shadow banned. I'm not reaching the audiences I should on this channel that I used to reach. So clearly, algorithms have changed to be to my detriment. Things are demonetized all the time. That is why I do fear them.
And so why is that more important to you than what's right?
It isn't. It's a hindrance and one of those things that makes me sad because it's another bump in the road saying, great, this has affected your finances. I'm going to continue to do this. But now it's like, okay, now I got to figure out other ways to make end meet. So I wouldn't say it's a fear that stops me dead in the tracks, but it does factor in my decision. Like earlier, when I told you right before we came on, my head was arguing to maybe hold off on this interview, but my heart said no way, because this is what I love to talk about. One of the many things I love to talk about.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I know for sure, if we put loving God first, and we put loving God with all our heart, soul, and might, along with nothing else, when one door closes, another one will open, because God would take care of his own, right? Just like the devil treat his own. And since I started my work, started Bond, I've always been on attack. Always.
I know.
There's never been a day when I wasn't, a year, a month when I wasn't under attack. And I've been called every name in the book, but I love what's right. And I understand now this battle between good and evil is trying to stop good, whether the people that are doing it know that they're evil or not. They don't realize that they're evil. They're doing the work of the devil and not their own. There is nothing that could stop me from doing it, because I love what's right. And what I do was given to me by God. It wasn't my decision to do the work that I do. So if he says stop, then I'll stop. But if he doesn't, I know he'll take care of me. And I've been called every name. I don't ever remember not being called a name.
You're right. One of the things I love is, you have such thick skin and nothing bothers you. I've heard black liberals say, why are you cooning for for the whites, quit talking like the slave master. You're right, they've called you white supremacists, everything under the book. And it's cool is you're still always the same calm guy, and you'll even smile at it, laugh at it. And I think, Jesse, unlike the little fears that I've ever had, this actually has probably even brought you a larger audience, because people know that you're not going to mess around when it comes
to the secret
like
to the secret. And I'm telling you, as a witness to it, right? Because I used to have fear before God changed my heart from anger to love. I had fear. And the secret to overcoming fear is to overcome anger.
Yes.
Because anyone that has anger has fear. Anyone, I don't care who it is, how poor, how rich, or what position you have in life. If you have anger, you have fear. Inwardly, you have fear. But if you were to forgive, you can overcome. He would take the spirit of anger away. And along with that, fear would disappear as well. So once he takes that away, he prepares his children to deal with the children of the devil in the world. And that's how you're able to be in the world and not affected by the world, because you're not angry at them. You forgive them because they know not what they do. So you don't have fear. It's taken away from you. It's another spirit that's taken away from you.
Yes. And again, this is one of the things, so many things I like about you, because you're able to literally live your life, and I've never seen you angry. And I've seen some Fallen State interviews. I think they were like in the 90s with you. I don't even know if they were at, the bond you're at now. I've seen so many things, so many people that would normally piss off a lot of people, but you always maintain your cool. Before
you mentioned, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, someone here wrote for you. It's a fan of yours. It's official RY Nirvana. He says, "Hey, Jesse Lee, or JLP, Jesse Lee Peterson. It's Ryan. I called in several times on your show. Keep up the good work." It was a super chat, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. I got to tell you that you mentioned the Great White Hope.
For everyone, yes. Two regulations must be eliminated.
The Great White Hope. And I have another Great White Hope over here that someone sent me as well. It's this one. Let me let this. The Great White Hope, Donald Trump, right?
I love him. I love him. You know what? Those are going to be collector's items, especially the one with the red hat.
One thing I want to tell you real fast. If ever we needed the Great White Hope, we need him now. The great Donald Trump, we need him now. I don't care what anyone says. He had no fear. He put America first. He stood and is still standing against the wild of the world, the devils who have been trying desperately and still trying to destroy him. But he, in spite of all the hell they put him through and still putting him through, he did not give up on America. He was making America great again. And if there's one person that can clean this mess up, it would be Donald Trump.
I'm glad you brought that up, because this actually has a couple things on the next topic. First of all, briefly, as I ask this, tell people why you call him the Great White Hope.
Because first of all, he is white. He put America first, bringing back hope to the people, and he has no anger.
Yes.
He was able to deal with, if every man could deal with the evil people in the way that Donald Trump has exhibited, America will be great overnight. It'll be all over, because the power is in the man. It's not in the woman. It's in the man. And Donald Trump demonstrated that power. And that's why I call him the great. Because one last thing, the world was afraid of us again. They respected us because they feared us. And Donald Trump did that with the help of God working through him. He did that. And that's why I call him the Great White Hope. And we need him to come back. We need him now.
We do. And like you said, he also was a person that didn't get angry and lose his cool and had thick skin. And he's still an outsider. I'm sure you've heard of things like Bohemian Grove, Bilderberger, etc. He was never at the Bohemian Grove, so much so Colin Powell, I think it was 2018, 2019, possibly 2020, if he hadn't died by that, but it was one of the last ones before he died. He was scheming with George W. Bush and others there to make sure he did not win. So he's always going to be considered an outsider.
He was where is that guy now, Colin Powell?
He's dead.
He's dead.
Yeah. He's dead. It's amazing, right?
Amazing. And that's the one thing I mean, that's why I appreciate President Trump so much. President Trump reminded me of the good old days where boys were boys and men were men. And men didn't have fear. Men didn't act like a woman acted. Men didn't attack one another. They weren't jealous and envious and revengeful. I'm sure you can find some, but most were not that way. And Donald Trump is like a chip off the old block. You remind me of that.
Yes, last of the old guard. Some people say they don't want him to run for, the polarity of the country and all that. I think all those arguments can really not even measure up to this one main argument. All the promises he kept, all the promises he made, he kept. He was a president who did things. He could do exactly what he did before with our economy, our border, everything else, finish things, and maybe even go further. So I think that's the absolute biggest reason why I think people should really start paying attention and give him a chance, as opposed to DeSantis right away. Because sure, I think DeSantis would also make a great president, but we have someone we already know can have the results.
Some of the dumbest things I've heard about the President Donald Trump that making people not want to vote for him is they disagree with him about the vaccine issue, whatever that was. I don't remember why, but they disagree with him. That's dumb. That's not a reason not to vote for the man. The man, we're never going to all agree on everything.
And he never mandated it.
Yeah, that's right.
Biden is forcing us to get this dangerous, deadly, unknown drug, at least unknown side effects long term. And Trump never said that he was going to do it, said it's even illegal to do it. Yeah. I mean, so I understand why some people are upset because they don't want the vaccine, but don't hate the guy because he's not forcing you to get it.
Disagree. The reason they turned against him, though, because they disagree with that and maybe other little things, is that when Donald Trump first announced that he was running for president, it had so much power behind it. We had never seen that before in America, right? A person running for president in government, period. And so the people put him on a pedestal. They put him above themselves. And so now they have a new God.
Yes.
And they made Donald Trump their God. And so they loved him. They patterned after him. They acted like him. They sounded like him. But as soon as he said something they disagree with, they threw their pedestal they threw the president off their pedestal, which they made up in their own mind. The president didn't tell them to do that. Yeah. They did it in their own dark imagination. And as soon as they disagreed with him, the very people that loved him turned against him. And now they're working along with those who already hated him to try to destroy him. And instead of seeing that about themselves, they just go find another group, another person to turn into a hero, and they stay blind and cannot see what they are doing. You should never put another person over you. You can agree, but never put them over you. You should only have one God. Nobody else or nothing else should ever become your God, or you do to your God what they're doing to Donald Trump.
Amen. Amen. Brian, who wrote the last comment and the super chat, official RY Nirvana. Here's another comment he says, and also thanks again, Ryan, for this other super chat. It says, just like I said on your show, Jesse Lee Peterson, the current president is like someone running a restaurant who's never done it before. Yeah. Amazing.
Amazing. As a matter of fact, in all honesty, I have not seen Biden's medical records or anything, but my father expired of Alzheimer's, right? He developed that. And when he first developed it, he was growing into the same stare and not knowing where he was at the time and not remembering as Joe Biden is doing. And every time I see Joe Biden, he reminds me of my father going through that. I don't know if Joe has it or not, but he definitely reminds me of someone that has that type of something wrong with him. But it reminds me of that. He doesn't even know he's the president,
or what he's saying, or if we had more time leading up to today, what I was going to have is either Nick or Doug prepare, the Joe Biden sheet. Like, you sit there, you say hi to Dr. J. He is white, and I was going to do it for you. Look at the screen. Say hi to Jesse Lee Peterson. He's black, but maybe another time is a joke.
Tucker reported that there was at least one interview that Joe Biden did, and that according to Tucker, his wife or somebody gave him some medication or something.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I think Tucker spoke to 2 people who were present during the campaign in the basement, and they said that the reason Biden only does things at certain times, like clockwork, is because they have to give him whatever medications he's on to be fine, because without them he's like a child. He can't speak, he doesn't know where he's at, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of these drugs is like Adderall, like methamphetamine. Again, I don't want to start any rumor, but again, that Tucker did say, and we all speculated on this, that he's on something, but Tucker did speak to 2 people that were actively giving him more than one medication.
Well, one thing for sure, something is wrong. I don't know what it is. The lights are on, but nobody's home.
Yeah, he's a shell. And as you mentioned earlier, that it reminds you of your father. Same thing with mine. My father had a stroke. He's still alive, but dementia's starting to set in. I see identical stuff. And it's very scary, because we are absolutely projecting weakness on the world stage. And, there's so much corruption. I mean, this is child abuse. It's not even funny anymore. I've been saying this, even before the election, and I will never say President blank for this person. I'll say President Brandon or resident, because I don't want to go into that, because that did get me demonetized last time. I'm sure I could infer why I won't say those things. But yeah, this is really, really bad. If this is like what it's set to happen if World War III was to take place. And who is running the show? Who is writing the transcript? I mean, what he's reading on the teleprompter.
I wonder that. I even wondered out loud the other day on my show. I wonder if the fallen Messiah, Barack Obama, is behind this. I wonder if somewhere, I remember him saying once that if he had another chance to be president or something, he would put on, if he could, since he can't, he would put on earplugs and sit in the back or something like that, a microphone or something, and try to still run it. And it seemed like Barack Obama is still running the country, because we're getting more of the same, but it's even worse. It's grown into worse. But it reminds me of when the fallen Messiah was in the White House. And I remember when Black Lives Matter was chanting, "What do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them now?" Pete's in the blanket, fry them like bacon. And what did Obama do? He invited some of them to the White House. He didn't tell them, "Hey, cut that out. You can't do that." He invited them to the White House. And so it just seemed like more of that is going on. When they had that riot, Black Lives Matter riot, and they tried to destroy the entire country, that was just beginning of when Barack Obama was in the White House, when they committed that insurrection upon the country by trying to destroy it. It just seemed like somewhere somebody is running it, and it's a continuation of what was started under Barack Obama, the fallen Messiah.
It's sad what you mentioned, BLM destroying our country. My uncle from my mother's side, they all came here from, both my parents, they met here, came here from Greece, tiny villages, nothing, no possessions. I mean, poor as can be. And of course, they all worked very, very hard. And my uncle and his wife, they're in their early 80s, never had children. I mean, just if you can imagine as hard work as to this day. And they bought a building that was a retail building, and it was a dollar store that they leased it out to. I don't know what the value was when they bought it 30 years ago, but according to the insurance, 2 years ago, it was $2 million. BLM burned it. It was like one of the few things they had. And, so again, what did BLM accomplish? Because this was, okay, we're not Black, but we are, I'm the son of an immigrant. This is a mom and pop business. Like, we're not billionaires. So I don't understand all this crap. And you said like
they accomplish a lot of money and perceived influence, because they have the big businesses and white people on the run, and the white people trying to pay them off and hope that they will leave them alone. That's not going to work. But that's what they accomplished what they wanted to, and that was money and perceived power. They even said that they were, some of the so-called founders of it said that they were trained by Marxists or something like that.
That's right.
They admitted it out loud.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? And yet the people are afraid of them.
And they talk about Marxism, distribution of wealth, which is a key thing in Marxism, and yet they're buying mansions, right?
That's right. That's what's being reported. What a mess.
Yeah. Now, you've interviewed some BLM people. Did you ever interview the founder?
I interviewed Patrice. What's her last name? Something. Patrice, the one. She was one of the founders.
Is she the big one? The L one?
Huh?
The big L one?
Patrice Colors.
Is she the big L one? I'm trying to say polite.
They all big. Oh yeah, the radical lesbian, fat black radical lesbian.
That's the one. I've seen that interview. Yeah.
And but she ran. She wasn't able to sit through the whole thing and communicate with me. She ran. And so that was like way back when they were like, I guess first starting out. Well, I became aware of them. And it was interesting to see that.
It's funny you just mentioned that. So many things you've actually gotten to without even me having to, read some of the notes that I had taken down that I wanted to address. You have a great chicken song that you play for people who ran. For everybody here who doesn't know what he's talking about, he will have guests on Fallen State. And literally, I'm shocked because they could see hundreds, if not thousands, of things you've done, Jesse. And I know they know who you are, what you are. You're a very talented person. You speak the truth. That's why I wanted to bring you here. That when your Doug asked, why I was that. But the point being is, I can't even count how many people have ran. So for those, just mention what running is and how many people would you say have run over the years since Fallen State?
Oh man. And the chicken song is only for the radio show, the JLP talk.com, right? It's for the radio show, JesseLeePeterson.com. And so we play the chicken song when they run from the radio show, not for the Fallen State. And, in all honesty, over the years, there's just been so many. I don't even count them. I just watch them running. And I wish, but I do wish for, hope for, is that Americans, both men and women, were to overcome their anger. They must go and forgive their mothers for turning them away from their fathers, and forgive their fathers for not protecting them from the mothers, and return to the father, because that yearning that they have, that void inside, nothing or no one can replace that. Only to love a return to the father. You must not hate your father, but you must love your father, right? And if they were to return to the father, and God would change their heart from anger to love, because anger is evil. I don't care what anyone says, anger is evil. And so you have to return from evil to love, and then amazing things will happen through you. Because most people don't know, because they know about God, they don't know him. They don't know what he would do through us, through them, because they won't give up the anger. They love their misery. They love their fears, and they love their doubts, and they love their revenge personality and attitude. And they love being crazy. And so they won't give up the fear. They won't give up the anger. But those who are giving it up around the world, not just in America, I counsel with men and women around the world. Yeah, they are becoming free, and they can see now, and they are moving forward in life, and they are doing amazing things, because now they are operating from a spirit of love and not hate, not anger. And love that comes from God, the real love, is not an emotional love. As a matter of fact, it's a dispassionate love. Yeah. Emotional love comes from anger, which is the nature of the devil. But dispassionate love, the light unto your feet, there's no emotions in it. It's not about fear. It's not about doubt. It's not about any of those things. So you must forgive. You must be born of the Father. All who are born of the woman, they're born of flesh. They must be born of the Spirit, because we are a spirit. Then you'll overcome the flesh.
You talked about these people who are angry and fearful. which brings something I've always wondered: why is there this obsession of people wanting to belong to or be a victim, belonging to a victim's group? The Me Too movement, or the oppressed LGBT movement, or the oppressed trans movement. I just don't understand where all this "I want to be oppressed." Where did this generation of betas come from?
They are in a fallen state and they don't know it. They cannot see. They have the identity of their mothers. And it's not the mother herself, but it's the spirit of evil that made a home in the mother. This has been passed down from during the Adam and Eve days time, when the woman believed the serpent. And the moment she believed the liar, the serpent, she took on his nature, which is evil. And then when Adam believed the woman, he took on the woman's nature. And so the order of God is not in operation right now with most people, because they have not returned to the Father. And so the woman is the man's God and Satan is the woman's God. And so it's being passed down through every woman. And that's why you must forgive your mother, so you can overcome the woman, the spirit of the woman, which is the spirit of the devil. Even the women must forgive their mothers, because the mothers have recreated even the boys and the girls in her image. And if you know, and so women feel subject to their mothers. They feel a sense of responsibility. They feel like they got to take care of mama. They got to be, because they feel guilt. They don't know that the mother did that to them, and that's not them that's feeling that way. But if they were to forgive, hey, mother, I'm sorry for resenting you, or grandmama, whoever raised them, I'm sorry for forgiving you. I'm sorry for resenting you for turning me away from my father. I realize now that you couldn't help yourself. Then their whole life would start to change. Their heart would change, and the men would stop acting and thinking like women, and the woman would no longer be the man's God. It would be God in Christ, Christ over man, man over woman, and woman over children. That order was spiritually reversed, because we are a spirit. We're not the body. We just live in the body. That order would change, and the men would no longer have fear of their God. The woman, she would fear them, and she would follow the man, because of the power of love that's in the man. The love comes through God, from God, through Christ, through the man, through the woman, to the children. Women don't have love to give. Only men have the love to give. Women receive love, but they don't have love to give. The love that comes from the woman is hate. It is not love. That's why it never works out. It never lasts, because it's not the real deal.
This actually ties into the last couple of things. I know we don't have time for anything past that that I wanted to get to you. You mentioned all this about the woman and the men being fearful and all that. Do you think this is why, or has the reason why this beta generation has come about is because of the lack of fatherless homes now?
100%. Or even if the father is in the home, if the father is subject to the wife, the mother, then the kids don't have a chance either, because the real order is for the man to be over the woman. Any man that's any man that has a woman over him is being destroyed, and that woman is being destroyed too, because she knows that she hates the fact that she with a man that can't lead her, that can't correct her, that need her. And so they both are being destroyed, and it's never going to change until that order change. It's just not going to work, because once God laid out the plan, he's not going to change his mind just because you don't want to do it, or just because you're afraid, or because you're in denial about it. He's not going to change one iota of his rule. He'll just let you suffer and die. He and his son will sit there and have coffee, and they'll try to warn you, but you don't listen. He'll let you live in your hell and die in your hell, and then he'll find somebody else to get married. They'll get married, make some more babies. He'll start a new generation until at least somebody get it right.
I think it was 20, 30 decade or 30 years or so, maybe you can correct me on the right number, is when it went from about 80% of Black families had a two-parent system, and then just a short time later, it's the inverse. Less than 20% have a two-parent.
Yeah, it's up
household.
in the high 70s right now. the
what,
number
what,
of children born out of wedlock in the Black community.
when did this change? When was it the 80% fathers and mothers versus the single family home?
My first remembrance of it was during the Civil Rights Movement, because prior to the Civil Rights Movement, Black men and women got married when they started their families, right? They got married, and the father was there to lead the woman and the children in the right way to go. And we didn't rely on government. We didn't rely on anyone else, right? But we worked with other people at times, but we didn't rely on anyone. And if a Black woman got pregnant out of wedlock, she would have to get married or leave town, go in hiding, because of the shame of having babies out of wedlock. They knew it was wrong. And so Black women were very careful not to get pregnant out of wedlock. And if a man got this woman pregnant, he would have to have a shotgun wedding. He would have to get married. I remember those days. But the Civil Rights Movement, which should have never happened, one of the worst things, worse than slavery that ever happened to Black people, was the Civil Rights Movement. Because Blacks have not returned since then. But what they did was they fell for these so-called Black leaders. They put them over themselves, right? And those Jesse Jackson and Martin Luther King and all those guys became their gods. And so they stopped thinking for themselves. They stopped doing for themselves. And they relied on these people to do their thinking for them. And what happened was, long story short, the so-called civil rights leaders sold them over to the Democratic Party. They made this deal. All right, we're going to bring you some Black voters if you let us be their leaders and you take care of them. So what the Democratic Party did, in the agreements of the so-called civil rights leaders, they gave Black people welfare, and they said to them, you can't have a man in the home. You cannot have a father in the home. You can't have a husband, or you will not get this free money. You will not get this free stuff. And they opted out because they listened to the civil rights leaders, and they got rid of the man. Even those who were married, some of them would go and hide when the welfare person came around for a check to check on things. They would hide from the welfare person. And so when they took the man out, they took God out of the family, because men are sons of God. They represent God. They may be weak beta, but they still represent God, right? All they have to do is turn back to God by forgiving their parents and loving their earthly father. Because if you resent your earthly father, you would never know God. How can you say you love God who you've never seen and hate your father, your earthly father? And it was the civil rights movement that did that to them.
You actually started to answer the very last thing I had for you, and intertwined with this last thing I'm about to ask, and also say, is one thing I've heard you say so many times is, growing up back then, is if you seemed stupid or dumb, it was shameful in your community, the Black community. No one wanted to do that. No one wanted to be dumb. Everyone wanted to be looked at as smart, intelligent, holding down a job, right? And that also collapsed. And the last thing, and as you talk about that briefly, I'm going to merge this last part to you, is I'm shocked at how many liberals and liberal Blacks, because conservative Blacks know this, is that Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, the first. He ended slavery. But it's mind-blowing to me when you hear, who are the slave owners? Republicans is what they say. Who ended slavery? Democrats. And when you tell them, no, it was the opposite, they're blown away. So those are the last thing I want to ask you about before we plug in some of your shows and stuff like that.
I talk about this a lot. When I was growing up and during those days, we were taught from day one how to work, how to be responsible, how to think for ourselves, not to join a group, so you don't get caught up in that mentality. Never, ever, ever put another person over you. We were taught that way. We were prepared. And I remember growing up, they would say, look, you got to work. We're preparing you, because when you turn 18 years old, you're out of here, especially with the boys. And I remember saying to them, well, where am I going? And my grandmother used to tell me all the time, and my grandfather, I don't know, and I don't care, but you're leaving here. You're out of here. And because I had that mentality when I turned 18, I left home that summer. I graduated high school that May. And in July, I went to Indiana and got me a job at a steel mill. And to make one paycheck so I can come to California, I made one paycheck. I moved to California. And we were also taught that if you want a family, a man should have his own place. Don't move in with a woman. Don't go into her world. Bring her into your world. Because if you go into the woman's world, you're going to catch hell. Nothing but confusion, nothing but hell, right? And so they said, if you want to start a family, you should have your own home, have your own job, and bring her into your life. And so they were told about a house at 25 that a man should have his own home, buy land. So I remember waking up on my 25th birthday, and I thought to myself, wow, I'm 25 years old today. I got to buy a house. And so I had a job, but I didn't have any money saved up to buy a house with. But I went and introduced myself to a realtor. And I said to them that I'm 25, I got to buy a house. And they were like, well, do you have the money for the house? No, I have a job, but I don't have money to put down on one. They're like, all right, let me look around. Long story short, they looked around and they found a home, beautiful home, man. 2-bedroom, kitchen, dining room, 2.5 bath, and just two baths or something like that. Big backyard with a guest home, 2-car garage. And that house cost $20,000. The whole house cost $20,000 in West LA. And my payments a month was $300. And that includes insurance and everything. But what was even more amazing is that when they found this house, the owner wanted someone to just take over the loan. They didn't want to have to pay on it no more. So I said, what the? And I took over the loan. And in 1 year, the house went from $20,000 to $100,000 in 1 year.
Wow.
And it's just been amazing ever since.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We were taught that as boys to be, not to stay home under mama's skirt tail. Yeah. Don't let mama talk you out of moving out. You're not going to grow up if you're not out there dealing with the issues of life. And men, once they turn 18, they need to get out there and deal with the issues of life so they could grow up from within.
Very well said. And you know, every girl that I had lived with, or sometimes I didn't live with them, I always had my own place. And only the first one did I actually sign the lease with her. But it was my apartment. Only I signed when she came in for a larger place. But after that, it was just always mine, and she kept her own, and I brought her into my world. So, Jesse,
if any man that goes into her world, he will be destroyed, and so will the woman, because she hates weak men. She loves weak men, and she hates weak men. She loves men that she can control, but she hates them. She prefer a man that she cannot control, but bring her out of the misery that she's in.
Prefers an alpha as opposed to a beta. Let me say a couple of things. First of all, for last time when I offered you guys Preston Dennett's book, I will be posting the winner to that in this description. Check 24 hours after this for all the relevant links, including all the 3 shows of Jesse, including his church. Aside from that, if you're new here, make sure you're subscribed, because, of course, if you want to see more of things like this, as well as lots of the paranormal and other shows, then, of course, you can access that. Hundreds of videos, not to mention exclusive content. And now, finally, Jesse, let's talk about where people can find you. I'll put all these links below. So you're on Monday through Friday, JesseLeePeterson.com and YouTube, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Right. JesseLeePeterson.com or rebuildingtheman.com. Rebuildingtheman.com.
And what day of the week is Fallen State?
Every brand new episode on Fridays, every Friday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. The Fallen State .tv, FALLEN, thefallenstate.tv. New episodes every Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific time.
And church is Sunday, 11 a.m. to 12:30, right?
Right. On Thursday, every third Thursday night of the month, we have women's forum for ladies only. And then the first Thursday night, men forums for men only. and Sunday morning church for everybody at 11 a.m. Pacific time. The Thursday night meetings are at 7 p.m. Pacific time. But the fellowship, I call it a fellowship because I'm not teaching anyone anything. I'm trying to point you to the teacher within. And so the fellowship is at 11, doors open at 10:30, but you can watch it live by going to rebuildingtheman.com/church.
Well, Jesse, it's been a true honor. Like I said, hang by for a quick second as this ends.
Okay.
And honestly, over 500 different guests in the 10th year. I think this should be the time that I want you to say the final words, because you say the coolest things ever. So, Jesse, close it for me.
I highly, highly do what they want, of course, but I highly recommend that people pull away from the crowd and start thinking for themselves. You are as smart as anyone else. As a matter of fact, intellectuals are dumb. People with degrees, they can't fix your problem. They have no clue as to how to do it. And so they offer you medication, they offer you mess, but they cannot resolve the problem. I highly recommend that each individual go and forgive their mothers or grandmothers who raised them, and forgive your father for not protecting you, and your world will change. You got to overcome, the heart must change. In order for the world to change, each individual heart must change from anger to love. And once you do that, because our battle is not about color, it's not about race, it's not physical at all, it's totally spiritual. And so especially the men, ladies too, the men really need to return to the Father, because the world needs men of the light, men of love, so that you can bring things back together. And don't be a beta male. Overcome the love, overcome the anger, so you can be an alpha male. I appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you, sir. The pleasure is all mine.
And the time went by like 90 going north.